Hi guys. Okay, I finally finished rereading Annihilation, so I am going to talk about all my thoughts on it and all the notes that I have for it, because I definitely have a lot, definitely a long video's worth of stuff to cover. And Jeff VanderMeer is so smart, because even if we do find a lot of the answers to the mysteries, I still feel like we'll have more questions about a lot of things. It's just like one of those stories where like you can dissect so much stuff and still uncover even more and more questions, which is an amazing talent to have. So I think that is amazing and really great writing. So I literally reread Annihilation through the format of the trilogy in this one novel format. It's just called Area X, and I just got it from Amazon. I did mention it in my last video. But yeah, it's just so pretty and I love it so much. So I read it in this format, and then I'm just gonna let you guys know about all the notes that I have. Everything's gonna be like out of order probably. I try to keep it as chronologically as I could, but I just had so many thoughts and so many notes. And I'm also gonna be comparing it a little bit to the movie, because I think it's really smart to compare a lot of it to the movie. So there are strange cascading lights that all the expeditions, it seems like they saw, are obviously not UFOs, I don't think, but it is most likely the brightness. It could either be actually the brightness organism itself in the sky, or it could be that because they're infected with the brightness that they see these images of it in the sky as hallucination, or I don't know, something else. And then also, Annihilation is actually a hypnotic suggestion that the psychologist created to use as a self-destruct or suicide button if things got worse and they needed to self-destruct. Hold on. I need to put the book down because it's like in my way. Okay. And they needed to self-destruct. It seems like the tower is a mirror of the lighthouse, which makes me believe that the tower didn't exist until after the lighthouse keeper got infected and became or merged with the crawler, because the lighthouse held so much significance to him, which the shimmer copied that and created its own version. Or the tower did exist but in a different form, and once the lighthouse keeper got infected, it morphed into that. Also, I'm like 100% determined that the sermon in the tower is either a magical spell that Henry used to create the portal of Area X from another universe or dimension, or it could be that the sermon is a way that the brightness is trying to communicate with the ecosystem with English through the mind of the lighthouse keeper, since I believe he's the first to get infected with the sliver of the brightness. And the reason that the sermon is repeated like 1 trillion times randomly throughout the novels is because I think it's like the levels of the brightness overtaking the host's body. Or the sermon could be the organism explaining what is happening, like literally what it's doing to the people and the planet with its abilities. You know what? I think I have it pulled up here somewhere. Let me find it really quick. Okay, I'm actually going to read you guys the whole sermon that's repeated throughout the entire series. So here it goes. Where lies the strangling fruit that came from the hand of the sinner? I shall bring forth the seeds of the dead to share with the worms that gather in the darkness and surround the world with the power of their lives, while from the dim-lit halls of other places, forms that never were and never could be writhe for the impatience of the few who never saw what could have been. In the black water, with the sun shining at midnight, those fruit shall come ripe, and in the darkness of that which is golden shall split open to reveal the revelation of the fatal softness in the earth. The shadows of the abyss are like the petals of a monstrous flower that shall blossom within the skull and expand the mind beyond what any man can bear. But whether it decays under the earth or above on green fields, or out to sea, or in the very air, all shall come to revelation, and to revel in the knowledge of the strangling fruit, and the hand of the sinner shall rejoice. For there is no sin in shadow or in light that the seeds of the dead cannot forgive. And there shall be in the planting and the shadows a grace and a mercy, from which shall blossom dark flowers, and their teeth shall devour and sustain and herald the passing of an age. That which dies shall still know life and death, for all that decays is not forgotten, and reanimated it shall walk the world in the bliss of not knowing. And then there shall be a fire that knows the naming of you, and in the presence of the strangling fruit, its dark flame shall acquire every part of you that remains. That is so beautiful, and that was it. Okay, so back to my notes. I think people trying to explain the book and movie through science only, like only using science to explain what happens in the book, I don't think that's going to work for you. I know it deals with a lot of that, but I think it's more than that. I think it honestly truly is extra dimensional, like clearly, and multi-dimensional what is happening here if you look at the bigger picture. And also, I definitely think the way one gets infected with the brightness determines the outcome of your annihilation, I guess, possibly. Like Dr. Ventress got infected through an injury at the tower alongside the anthropologist who ended up dying, whereas Lena got infected via spores or inhalation of the organism. I'm going to refer, just so you know, I'm obviously referring to them by their character names. Between their character names and the book names. The book didn't give them names. The movie director got it approved, I guess, by Jeff VanderMeer. I was watching some of their interviews. He created the names for them because he said he doesn't think it would work in a movie format if they didn't have names, if they just refer to each other by biologists or anthropologists or surveyor and stuff like that. So I definitely think the way one gets infected. Oh, I just read that. So why did I forget that Ghost Bird was what Lena's husband used to call her as a nickname? That's literally why Lena's copy and acceptance referred to herself as Ghost Bird. Also, is the boar the same as the moaning creature in the novel? I don't know. Because I swear the book mentioned a boar, and then I don't think it ever mentioned it again, and then it just started referring to something else as the moaning creature. And then the animal that you see in the movie is literally nothing at all like what you see in the novel. I don't think they're the same creature, to be honest, but I think it's loosely based off of the novel's creature, because in the book, literally nothing scary happens with that creature. It's just the moaning of the creature is just very like haunting. But in the movie, that whole scene and like all of that, everything that revolves around that animal, like literally none of that happened in the book. So all of that was added to this to the movie just for like the horror aspect of it. Also, the movie definitely did enhance the mutation aspect of the novel. The movie had a crocodile mutated with the mouth of a shark, whereas in the novel most of the birds and most of the animals seem normal, but here and there some are mutated differently in the sense that they have human characteristics, or we know they once were human. Also, are all the animals in Area X transformed humans? I don't know. Maybe not. Thinking back on it now, I take back what I said about book 2 being pointless. So it actually was very necessary to have that behind the scenes of the Southern Reach. And I swear Annihilation covered the Southern Reach more. I mean, I swear I could have, I remember that the Annihilation book covered the Southern Reach more than it did, but when I reread it again, it made me realize that it just actually was barely spoken about, very briefly. Also, the fact that when the surveyor shot Lena with her rifle, and the brightness basically protected her from the effects of being shot at, it's definitely showing how the brightness having a control over her DNA now, fully encompassing her DNA to protect its host from external forces and external harm. Speaking of DNA, oh my god, I found this video the other day of this guy that he just posted it 3 months ago, and it's called like the Shimmer or Dome Genetics Explained, Mutations Explained or something like that. And he goes so in depth, like biologically and genetically, how like what was happening to the ecosystem and what was happening to the characters with their mutations of their DNA. And it was so incredible. If you like that kind of stuff, you should watch it. It was really, really good. So he definitely took the more science approach, and I'm more of the like magic metaphysical approach. There is the color green and gold mentioned the most when being transformed in the novel. And do we think brightness refers to the color white? Probably not, because the characters describe themselves as being phosphorescent or phosphorescent. But then towards the end of the novel, Lena does say that she has a green glow emanating from her body. So I guess it changes color, I guess, throughout your annihilation, throughout your change, throughout your mutation. Then in the ending, she said the golden light where the crawler was changed to a blue-green light. So there's a lot here with color going on. Lena mentions towards the end looking at the sky and seeing stars arranged differently in chaotic new patterns. I think that's confirmation for sure. They are in another planet, possibly in another universe. Because if it's in chaotic new patterns, that means you're in a completely different location. You know what I mean? The crawler is defined by Lena as, and I quote, "The crawler kept changing at a lightning pace, as if to mock my ability to comprehend it. It was a figure within a series of refracted panes of glass. It was a series of layers in the shape of an archway. It was a great slug-like monster ringed by satellites of even odder creatures." And I end quote. Lena also says it was mimicking her, like it was absorbing from her brain how she believed it to look. So then it took that form in physicality and continued to change its form. I personally think the figure existed in multiple dimensions and couldn't keep a stable form within our visible spectrum vision, if that makes sense. The rectangular block of fuzzy white light at the bottom where the crawler is has got to be the entrance back out to the southern reach, I think, because she describes that every time she gets closer to it, the block would grow in size. And also there's a lot of theories on Reddit that show that that's the exit point that the copies take to get outside of the border, outside of Area X, to go back to the real world. So that's why no one comes out back alive being fully human. Like, you have to be a copy because you have to go through all of that. Also, it's so interesting how she describes the crawler, turning her skull into dust, then reforming it again. It seems as if the crawler was analyzing or scanning her DNA and seeing what could be extracted from her DNA, or if she was a good host, possibly for their agenda or their like invasion agenda. Because it seems like Area X is going to take over the planet. Is the lighthouse keeper the crawler, or was the lighthouse keeper consumed by the crawler? Because Lena mentions that the crawler had organisms circling him, she referred to as its jailers. So the jailers could obviously be all the other people from all the other hundreds of expeditions that went inside Area X, and the crawler just like absorbed or consumed. Towards the end of the book, Lena realizes the cells in the microscope of everything that's infected looks normal under this scope, but she knows that's impossible. She says that she thinks by observing it, it changes its reality. So now we're getting into quantum physics, in the book at least, but in the movie, they completely changed it. The director completely changed it where she sees her cells covered in the shimmer, basically. So it is different than the book, for sure. Lena describes the fungi or lichen that is on the walls forming the words to be parasitic. And it made me think if the brightness itself is parasitic in nature, as it seems it is looking for a host or multiple hosts. This is a quote from the book. All I could think was that this was a man who had had a normal life once, perhaps, but not one of those familiar rituals that define normal. I think I copy and pasted that so bad. He had been caught up in a storm that hadn't yet abated. Perhaps he had even seen it coming from the top of the lighthouse, the event arriving like a kind of wave. And what had manifested? What do I believe manifested? Think of it as a thorn, perhaps, a long, thick thorn so large it is buried deep in the side of the world. injecting itself into the world. Emanating from this giant thorn is an endless, perhaps automatic, need to assimilate and to mimic. Assimilator and assimilated interact through the catalyst of a script of words which powers the engine of transformation. Perhaps it is a creature living in perfect symbiosis with a host of other creatures. Perhaps it is merely a machine, but in either instance, it has intelligence. If it has intelligence, that intelligence is far different from our own. It creates out of our ecosystem a new world, whose processes and aims are utterly alien, one that works through supreme acts of mirroring and by remaining hidden in so many other ways, all without surrendering the foundation of its otherness as it becomes what it encounters. I do not know how this thorn got here or from how far away it came. But imagine the expeditions, 12 or 50 or 100, it doesn't matter, that keep coming into contact with that entity or entities that keep becoming fodder and becoming remade. These expeditions that came here at a hidden entry point along a mysterious border, an entry point that perhaps is mirrored within the deepest depths of the tower. Imagine these expeditions and then recognize that they all still exist in Area X in some form, even the ones that come back, especially the ones that came back, layered over one another, communicating in whatever way is left of them. Imagine that this communication sometimes lends a sense of the uncanny to the landscape because of the narcissism of our human gaze, but that it is just part of the natural world here. I may never know what triggered the creation of the doppelgangers, but it may not matter. End quote. So what is the end goal of Area X? Does it ultimately encompass the entire planet? I actually do think so. But after that, what happens? I have no idea. Okay. In the film, when Lena's copy burns the whole lighthouse and destroys Area X, using the information from the book series, that would actually not stop the organism or the shimmer. Because in Authority, we are told that fire cannot even destroy it with the little sample of the plant. And I don't know where I read it, but apparently this alien came from a dying race. Like something killed its race, but like what's even powerful enough to kill this then if fire cannot kill it? Also, I have to say everything about the psychologist is so much better in the movie than in the book. Especially the way that she dies is way better in the film. Also, Jennifer Jason Leigh was the most perfect casting for that role, I think. I still think about her lines in the movie to this day. Like, it was just so good, and her character was incredible. Also in the film, the crew lost 4 days through amnesia, and I have a heavy feeling that it was possibly the psychologist hypnotizing them to do God knows what. But if I'm right, it's a nod to the novel where hypnosis played a huge role in the psychologist's power over the crew, to which the biologist was kind of, for the most part, immune to, even before getting infected with the spores, to be honest. But definitely once she got infected with the spores, she definitely was immune to anything hypnosis related. And I think it's the organism's way of like exerting control and saying, I'm an extra dimensional entity. I don't know what you think you are, but I have control over this host. You don't. So definitely has a lot of power with that and controlling of your mind. Someone commented on YouTube, this YouTube video, with the comment, "My understanding after watching was that it was an extra dimensional entity that was trying to understand its surroundings, which its mere act of trying to perceive what was around it would scramble those things on a genetic level, and it most actively did so by using mimicry. In the end, to start to destroy itself, it might have actually reached an understanding that what it was doing was harmful." I thought that was a really good explanation of the movie. I feel like this whole series and the movie itself can be explained in so many different ways, and I think that's what makes it really cool too, because it's literally multi-dimensional in its explanation of what it might be. And I think even the author has it open to interpretation as well. So I don't know, I really think so. Also, I wonder why the book mentions 6 types of poisonous snakes. When snakes are literally like never mentioned again in the book, it's not meaningful to the story at all. But in the movie though, Lena gets a tattoo on her arm of an Ouroboros, which is the symbol of the snake eating itself. Apparently it may have belonged to a past crew member, and the shimmer refracted that tattoo to be placed on her. And I also think it's a metaphor of self-destruction, yes, but also of eternity or infinity. Meaning, even if she dies in the shimmer, she is not truly dead, because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transformed. I think that could also be not an allegory, but like a theme across the whole novel and the series, that you are not, that just basically energy cannot be created nor destroyed, just transformed. And then I'm just going to finish the video with this, another comment from YouTube on their theory of the movie. This story was about the shimmer's inability to reproduce. Sure, it could alter life, but it could not create it. All the women on the team did not have partners at home except the protagonist. I think initially the shimmer chose her partner, who was in the first team of all men, to replicate and send back because it knew he had a mate once it copied him. Then it used his copy to draw her inside, knowing she'd most likely head to the shimmer to find a way to stop his illness. Once there, I think it altered her DNA and sent her back, so she and her partner, or shimmer copy, could create this new life based on the shimmer's altered DNA. It burned itself down once its mission was complete. I think if the military teams were men and women, it would have achieved its goal quicker. That's really all I have to say on Annihilation. There is so much that we can still talk about. Once again, I think it was Henry from book 3 that that invited this entity from another universe or another dimension, some other reality, into our reality, and it just created this whole chain reaction effect of basically mutation, evolution, and death, I guess you could say. Also, what else was I gonna say? I love how the movie ended. I thought it was super, super cool. Obviously her husband that came back, it was obviously a copy, and I think the Lena that came back, I honestly think it's not a copy of Lena. I think it truly is Lena herself, the biologist, but I think she I guess is like the catalyst or like the host for what is left of the shimmer and what is left of Area X, because she was already infected. As we saw, obviously she was under the microscope and she saw herself with the shimmer, and she didn't get burned in the burning of the entire island, the entire coast. So yeah, she's obviously still infected, and she obviously still has the shimmer within her, and it's just probably just going to continue on and recreate itself again. But maybe this time it's going to recreate itself through, maybe not through an ecosystem, but now through an airborne or like touch, what do you call it? Illness like that, and just like invade the whole world. What else was I going to say? I was going to say one more thing, but I can't even remember now. It had something to do with Lena. I can't think of it. I'll probably write it out in the comments if I can remember it. But leave your comments in the video of what you think your interpretation is of the series, because I'm pretty sure everyone's is different. I really want Jeff VanderMeer to release a book with Henry's interest in the occult. I don't like Henry at all, but I think it would be interesting because I love the magical side of Annihilation. There's clearly and obviously magic involved alongside aliens. I still can't remember what I was going to say, but I'll probably write it out in the comments if I do remember. But that's a wrap, honestly. I don't know if I'm going to talk about it again, about this series anymore, but it was so good, and it was everything that I wanted in a science fiction novel. Like a science fiction novel that was like grounded to Earth, and not like a science fiction novel that's like interstellar travel and stuff like that. So I say you go check it out and read it, even if you don't like third person, which I don't like third person at all. I still read it because I really liked it. So that was like one of the exceptions. And I think The Magician's book might be another exception. But other than that, I don't think I'll read third person again. Or I don't know, maybe. The story has to be like freaking phenomenal and I have to be so interested in it to read it in third person. Other than that, I am a fan of first person the most, obviously. Because I've already mentioned that a million times. But I'm done. Okay, go read the book, go read the series, go watch the movie.